It's Andy Purewal for Boxing Social, and I'm delighted to be joined by promoter Eddie Hearn. Eddie, you just said you're looking very tanned at the minute.
Couple of weeks on the West Coast, and now we're in Nottingham. So it's all good, it's all good.
Definitely not one to compare, I would say. Obviously down here for the fight the card on Friday night. Talking about the decision to bring boxing back to Nottingham.
Well, these next gen cards are really important. I mean, I know we get a lot of stick for everything we do, but you announce the next gen card. Oh, I know to these people. That's the whole point. The point of the next gen cards are mainly Friday night boxing, giving young fighters the chance to have championship fights deep on the card, headlining their hometowns, giving younger fighters making their debuts TV exposure, again, big event experience. We've got 2 pro debuts on Friday night in Charlie Frankham and Dalton Smith, 2 the top British prospects to turn pro recently. Got Raymond Ford from New Jersey, our US amateur sensation. He's on the card. Got 2 great championship fights with Gill and Lee Wood against Ryan Doyle. You got heavyweight Fabio Wardley, a really good women's fight. I mean, it's a stacked card, and we're in Nottingham because of Lee Wood. We were here over 6 years ago with Froch, and they were some of the best nights of my life, let alone my career. So I'm pleased that he's here. He's got a great chance. If he can win and win well, could become a regular fixture again.
Lee said that he'd like to follow in the footsteps of Carl and try and bring big time boxing back to Nottingham. Can you see him having that type of impact?
He's a good fighter. You never know with these guys how good they are until they step up to that level. Really, I expect a war with Ryan Doyle, but he needs to beat him well. If this kid's going to be a world beater, no disrespect to Ryan Doyle, but he needs to be dominating Ryan Doyle, like Jordan Gill did. Reece Bellotti got stopped by Ryan Doyle. He was a fighter that we thought would go on to that level. We found out that he wasn't good enough for that level at that moment. So he needs to be really dominating fighters like Ryan Doyle if he's going to be filling these stadiums, in the future in big world level fights. Because if he can't beat Ryan Doyle in style, he doesn't have the ability to go on and be in those fights. But that's why I like these fights, because it tells you everything you need to know. If he is the real deal, he'll deal with him in style, and if he's not, he might struggle, he might get beat. But that's okay. At least we know. And then boxing in Nottingham will be on the back burner again. But he sold a lot of tickets for Friday, and he's a very popular guy from this city, a city that will really get behind their fighters if they're good enough and if they're in major fights.
He didn't seem to want to forgive you about not letting him get on that Carl Froch on the card.
I forgot all about that, yeah. I remember that was... we had all our fighters on that card, and everyone said, you've got to put Lee Wood on. So I put Lee Wood on, and we didn't have time to get him out. It didn't go down well. I do actually remember getting a lot of stick from the fans for that.
Obviously, just to come back to this card, Jordan Gill, the co-headline event. Talked about Tinoco, what you know about him, and how come you decided to put him in Jordan?
Tinoco is very tough. He's a decent operator. He jumped in at a couple of weeks' notice to fight Devin Haney. Went the distance in that fight, up at lightweight. He's a featherweight. I know his team, Paco, and those guys. They always come to fight. He's extremely tough. I think Jordan's going to have his hands full. I think he's going to try and move and box him, and I think he's going to get walked down. I think he's going to get drawn into a war as well. I expect him to win, but I do expect it to be a very tough fight for him.
If Jordan was to produce another stoppage display, he's had 3 on the bounce then.
For a non-puncher?
Yeah.
Really. I mean, it's a guy's, what's he got, like 6 stoppages in 30 wins or something? It's mad, isn't it? And Warrington's similar. Warrington had no stoppages on his record, really, and then started stopping people, So it's interesting. And I think that Jordan is on the verge now of really breaking through and becoming a Saturday night fight night headliner in big fights, European title fights, world title eliminators, if he continues showing this form. I think he's a very, very exciting fighter.
Now, also, you mentioned Tinoco's been in with Devin Haney. Yesterday, we had the announcement that Luke Campbell's going to fight for the WBC vacant world title against Vasyl Lomachenko. Caught everybody by surprise because everybody was assuming Haney would be called to fight Campbell. Did you ever know that Vasyl Lomachenko was in?
I knew that there'd been a lot of petitions from various fighters to fight for that title. Lomachenko was one of them, and I had a meeting with Maurizio Suleiman on Friday, who told me that was one of the people that had asked to fight for the title. I didn't like the conversation that I had, and I had a bad feeling this was going to happen. And I think it's ridiculous. What is the point in aligning yourself with a governing body, climbing the rankings, winning their intercontinental silver titles, spending money on your sanction fees, turning down opportunities with other governing bodies, if when a title becomes vacant, they don't even go down the rankings? It's just a decision to suit the WBC, not its ranked fighters. How can a other champion just stroll in and get a shot at the title? Really, it should be Campbell against the next available, and then they can go and fight Lomachenko for an undisputed fight. But would they let Richard Comey fight Luke Campbell for the vacant title? No. So, listen, I understand the game. I know how it works. They want Lomachenko to be their champion. But I just don't think it's fair on the other ranked fighters that they don't get an opportunity and someone just strolls in and gets it. I see a couple of comments, I think Ron Lewis and people like that say, no, I don't know why people are moaning. It's great, the best fighter comes in, but that's not how it should be, in my opinion. But listen, sometimes it works in your way, sometimes it doesn't. If the same situation was there for Joshua, I'd probably apply for it and they'd give it to him as well. But I don't think that it's really fair that guys, particularly at number 2 and 3, have to then go and take part in like this semi-final tournament, which is ridiculous. It should just now be Haney against Abdullayev for the winner of Campbell against Lomachenko. But, I'm pleased in a way because Luke's got a massive fight, but Luke wanted to win the world title and then fight Lomachenko. But now he's got to fight him now, and he will do, and we'll get it in the UK, and he'll be there to win it.
You mentioned you had a conversation with Maurizio Sulaiman on Friday night. What exactly was you guys discussing?
A lot of things. I mean, we're still in a mess with the Dillian Whyte situation, and we still don't have a resolution that we're happy with. We want the Oscar-Rivas fight to be for the interim world title, a mandatory position, and for the winner of Wilder against Brazil. And we won't stop until we get a resolution that we believe is fair. Dillian Whyte is a guy who has had, 4 WBC silver fights. He's been number 1 for over a year. He's had 2 or 3 WBC official eliminators. And they give the mandatory position to a guy who's number 4. So that's not on. So we need to make sure that Dillian Whyte gets what he deserves. And that is a shot at the world title. Oscar-Rivas is like the 5th guy he's boxed in the WBC top 10. So this fight should be for the interim world title, and it should be for the mandatory position. And that is only fair. So we didn't get our way yesterday with WBC. Hopefully they'll do what is right and give Dillian Whyte his way with this decision.
That's something I was going to ask you. Does that maybe add or rub salt to the wounds a bit more in regards to Dillian Whyte and the fact that he hasn't found himself in the position to fight for the WBC world title just yet?
Does what rub
As
salt?
in, with regards to the Lomachenko-Campbell fight being announced as well?
No, they're both separate decisions. You can't just say, well, we didn't get that decision, so give us this one, mate. Do you know what I mean? Like, you've got to decide each appeal, each resolution on their merits. For me, the obvious thing to do, and historically what happens with a vacant title, is you go down the rankings for the first 2. And then, by the way, they have to have 2 mandatory fights with the WBC. With Dillian Whyte, I was worried that might happen with Lomachenko. With Dillian Whyte, it's plain and simple. He has not, in my opinion, been treated fairly by the WBC. He's done everything he's asked to do. He's fought all the top contenders. He's defended the WBC silver title. He won the WBC international title. In fact, I think he won the WBC international silver. Then he won the international. Then he won the silver. He's turned down IBF final eliminators. He's turned down shots at Anthony Joshua because he's been promised this mandatory scenario. So now they've got to give it to him, and that's what we're pushing for.
On the fight itself, though, between Luke and Vasyl Lomachenko, what are your thoughts on it?
I think Luke Campbell's probably got as good a chance as anyone to beat him. Doesn't mean that that's going to happen, but what it means is he's there to win. He has great amateur pedigree. He grew up around Vasyl Lomachenko. He's very, very awkward. He's very rangy. He's skillful. He's a southpaw. He's going to do things that Lomachenko might not like, but Lomachenko is a genius. I just think that in terms of styles, he probably has as good a chance as anyone in the division to beat him.
And obviously, yesterday we had the news that Alexander Usyk was going to pull out of his bout with Carlos Takam because of injury. What exactly could you fill us in on that and what happened?
Yeah, he tore a bicep. It's not bad enough to have an operation, so he's looking at coming back in August. A bit of a kick in the nuts. I mean, there's like a string of bad news recently with Miller and all that sort of stuff, which is good news because when I get bad news, I think, fucking hell, we're about to have some really good news. So that's the way I look at it. So we're looking forward to that coming. Disappointing was looking forward to the Takam fight. We're just tying everything up at the moment. We're most likely to move forward with that show. We'll probably switch it to Vegas and let Devin Haney headline.
Do you still see Usyk Takam being his first fight at heavyweight? Or
We may make Hunter against Takam for that same card now. Hunter's on the bill. Takam's obviously looking to fight. It's a really, really good fight. And if both guys want it, we might be looking to make that one.
Obviously, over the past weekend, you was out in the States. We saw Danny Jacobs' unsuccessful attempt at defeating Canelo-Alvarez. Your thoughts on that bout?
I thought it was a good fight. I thought it was a very skillful fight. I thought that Danny started too slow, and I think he started slow because he was mainly concerned about his engine having made the weight the way he did. It's been a struggle for Danny at 160 for a while now, but that one was a real struggle, and that's why he couldn't make the £10 the next day, because he needed to hydrate in that way, and he needs to move to 168. I'm taking nothing away from Canelo, he was brilliant, but I felt Danny won the last half of the fight, but he gave too much away in the early half of the fight. The right man won, in my opinion, and I think Danny's going to be a real threat at 168. His next fight will be in October, November, and I'm looking forward to seeing him full and strong at that weight. He's been £160 for like his whole career. In fact, I think in the amateurs at 18 he was boxing at like 165 or those kind of numbers. So, but he's had a lot of success at middleweight, and he had to take that fight. I don't think before that fight he was thinking about moving up necessarily, but it was on his mind. But after what he experienced at the weigh-in, he knows now is the time.
Some people over social media suggested he might have actually worked in his advantage before the fight this is to have come in a bit heavier. Did you ever think that yourself?
In the ring,
yeah.
You mean? No, he wanted to come in at 170. He always comes into the ring about 175, 176. I think he came into the ring about 160, 176 or 177. So, but he couldn't make the £10 in the morning. He woke up and he was £3 over, and he weren't going to take any weight off because it's dangerous, and it would have given him no chance in the fight. So his body was telling him that he needed to refuel in that way, and that's what he woke up. So, but he only woke up £13 heavier because he struggled to make the weight. If he made the weight easily, then the £10 would have been fine, but he needed a little bit more to replenish himself after a tough weight cut.
And obviously since then we're looking at who may face Canelo next. The one which I think's got anybody who's involved in British boxing licking their lips, potential bout with Canelo-Smith. Have you guys discussed that? Had any talks with Oscar De La Hoya?
Yeah, they always mention it, and there's been a lot of talks behind closed doors about potential opponents, and Canelo and Canelo-Smith is always mentioned. You got the number one Ring Magazine 160 pounder against the number one Ring Magazine 168 pounder. It's a great fight. I do expect Canelo to fight Triple G next in September. And then I think, we've got two fights for him in Callum-Smith and Andrade. And Andrade is the link to the Undisputed. So maybe he looks to fight Andrade and then moves up and fights Callum-Smith after that. But when I left the arena on Saturday, he came over to me and I said, well done. And as he walked off, he went, hey Eddie, who have you got next for me? Because he's beaten Fielding, now Jacobs, and now we've got two more for him, Callum-Smith and Demetrius Andrade. So we look forward to taking on those challenges.
How do you think Canelo will naturally adapt to, not just necessarily a bigger weight, but Callum's obviously very big at 168, yeah. And there was a name mentioned in Sergey Kovalev that was considered, which...
Yeah, he's not a massive middleweight, he's still growing, but he can fight at 168 for sure. It's a disadvantage with him on the sides because Callum is a monster at 168. Kovalev's a whole new challenge at 175, but I think that it's an intriguing fight, Callum-Smith against Canelo, as is the Andrade fight, as is the Golovkin fight, and if he's willing to go Danny Jacobs, Golovkin, Andrade, Callum-Smith or vice versa, you've got to take your hat off to him because he's fighting the very best out there.
We've also had the AJ Ruiz fighting that since we last caught up. How come you guys decided to take on Andi Ruiz ahead of the other names that were mentioned?
For various reasons. One, there was other names who I just didn't feel were good enough, and I want a bit of fear, to be honest with you. And Andi Ruiz puts that fear into me because when I speak to people in boxing, like last night I spoke to Carl Moretti, Top Rank, and he went, this is a really dangerous fight, don't you? I'm like, all right, calm down. But he's going to let his hands go. He's got a decent chin. He's got plenty of heart. Obviously, as well, he's Mexican. Could be the first ever Mexican world heavyweight champion. There's been a huge amount of Mexican support and ticket sales since we've announced the fight. He's credible. Arguably should already be world champion. He don't look as good in a pair of shorts as AJ, which is the tougher part. But there's other guys who look good in a pair of shorts that didn't deserve to be in a ring with AJ and would have gone 1 round or 2 rounds. And I didn't want to leave the garden with everyone going, that was rubbish, you know? So I think we've found a guy who has plenty of heart, has decent skill, has very fast hands, and will come and stick it on AJ. And I think it's going to be a tough fight. And AJ's got to be on his game and to make sure that he wins.
Something I was going to ask you, say if AJ was able to walk through Ruiz and produce another stoppage victory within, say, the first 4 or 5 rounds, if the stick was to come again, would you kind of feel like, I wish we did choose somebody else?
No, because you have to go with your heart. You have to. We know boxing, and again, the difference with this fight is when you speak to people who know boxing and fight fans, they go, "Good fight." But my mates have messaged me and gone, "Who is this guy, Andi Ruiz? Are you taking the mick?" I'm like, "No, watch his fights. Trust me, like he can fight." And then they see interviews with, I don't know, I think Canelo gave one, Oscar gave one, Jesse Vargas gave one. Guys who have grown up with him in the Mexican national team and gone, "Oh, this guy's for real." He just don't look the part, that's the problem. If he did, if this guy was built like AJ, he'd be a Mexican icon, especially as a heavyweight. But part of his character is the fact that he is powered by Snickers, as he says, and he's a character. But one thing, and the main reason I chose him is, he's got plenty of heart, he's got plenty of balls, and he'll come to fight, and he'll try and knock AJ out. I don't want someone that just prances around the ring, gets chinned, and then goes home, takes his payday. I want someone that genuinely wants to win. And again, with the whole Mexican feel, the Zone especially now, have hundreds of thousands of Mexican subscribers who will be looking at Ruiz as a chance to make history.
I know you offered a fight to Luis Ortiz, which was turned down. Originally, they claimed that it was a low-ball offer before going back on themselves. Would that have been your first choice still if it could have been made?
That was AJ's first choice. I mean, look, it was never ideal. Like, I thought that was the fight. Rob McCracken said, if you want him, if you feel comfortable with 3 weeks of southpaw sparring, we'll do it. We made them an offer, $6 million. They turned it down. We made them another offer, $7 million. This is probably 8 times what he got offered for the Deontay Wilder fight. He still turned it down. And it shows you everything you need to know. Like, who is turning that down? Is it Ortiz? Is it a manager? Is it an advisor? Is it a promoter? Is it a network? But people are starving these fighters of opportunities to change their life. And it's sad. So, listen, if Ortiz wants to go next, he can have it next. But I think a lot of the problem with these fighters is they're told what to do. Whereas they should be the ones coming out and saying, I'm taking it. I'm taking it. $7 million. Like, my life's complete, my kid's life's complete, their kid's life's complete, and I believe I can beat AJ. But either they don't believe they can beat AJ or someone's telling them not to take the fight.
Some people were mentioning that he may have been turning down the fight because he might have himself been in some form of a cycle in terms of PEDs. Did that ever cross your mind?
Well, everyone said it. Who knows? I mean, there's a massive problem with PEDs in America. No one's getting tested unless you put them on VADA testing, which we just did, and one failed 3 tests with 3 different substances. If you're not getting tested, how do you expect? I mean, it's almost encouraging cheating if you're not getting tested, So it's a major problem in America, and I think someone's got to act. But, people said, oh, Ortiz didn't take the fight because he's on a PED cycle. I don't know. I mean, that's speculation, isn't it? But it's been busted before.
And also just wanted to get your thoughts on Amir Khan's defeat Terence Crawford and where it leaves him in terms of his next opponent.
I'm actually speaking to the guys tomorrow. Listen, in a sick way, I just want to make the Brook Khan fight. I still think it's a great fight. I still think it's a huge amount of interest, great build-up. Kell wants the Terence Crawford fight as well, and we'll see what happens over the next couple of weeks. Amir will definitely fight again, that's for sure. It's not as if he took a lot of stick in that fight, really, apart from one in the nuts. So we'll see what he decides over the next few weeks.
People were saying he quit. What was your thoughts when you seen that?
I think to say that a fighter quit is only something that fighters can say to another fighter, really. I mean, if he was going to quit, he might as well have done it in the first round, and he kept trying in the fight. It wasn't if he just was getting on his bike and looking for a way out. He kept jumping in and trading. He got one in the nuts. I feel like he could have got stopped shortly after, and I felt like he had taken a bit of punishment, and the corner were definitely looking at it thinking, there's a way out here with him. He wasn't going to win the fight, in my opinion, from the position he was in. So he lives to fight another day, doesn't he? I mean, we're sitting here now saying that he didn't really take any stick in the fight. He could have got knocked out and his career was over. So I don't think you can ever blame a fighter for that.
You mentioned you'd like to make the Karl Brook fight as well. Is that a fight which you think still drums up enough interest for people?
For sure, not as big as it once was, but a big domestic fight still with a great build-up, with a lot of hatred, does big numbers. Doesn't do the numbers that he did a year ago, but still does big numbers.
And my final question, you wasn't here for Dillian Whyte's announcement press conference with Oscar Rivas. Your old man Barry stepped in. Some comments which people haven't maybe taken kindly to, the slave one in particular. What was your thoughts when you saw the press conference back?
Probably weren't the best term to use, but it was pretty obvious what he meant. Fighters used to be under slave contracts, i.e. they were told what to do. The promoters were the bosses. Now it's completely changed. What he was using it as an example of was that Dillian Whyte has complete control of his career, whereas when he was promoting, it was the other way around. So probably could have used a better terminology, nothing to do with the colour of anyone's skin, just saying that fighters used to have no control and were told exactly what to do, and now they do. He was actually speaking positively about the sport and how it had changed. But obviously, if you want to jump on a bandwagon, if you want to make a mountain out of a molehill, if you want to be, have an agenda against us or my dad, then it's very easy to say, oh, he shouldn't have said that, and it was a rate. Of course it wasn't. Anyone knows him. It was actually naivety from someone that's actually not very naive, if that makes sense. But I've told him, I gave him a bollocking, and I said, that's the last one you ever do. So he was a bit disappointed because he's taking a bit of stick, and he's so old school, he's just not like that at all. He can't get his head round why anyone would think differently. But we live in a different world now than we did when he was around, in many ways. And his example was that fighters never had any control, were told what to do, their bosses were the promoters, and now it's great because they actually have control. And that's why you see Dillian Whyte sitting next to him laughing and cracking up. Let me tell you something, if you said something that offended Dillian Whyte, he wouldn't be laughing, mate, he'd be chinning you, or he'd be telling you to fuck off. And, it was what it was. But like I said, his last press conference.
You mentioned you had to have a word with him. I don't think Barry was very happy about that because he saw your little tweet before and said he'd have to take your silver spoon away from you.
Yeah, I know, I saw that, yeah. But he spoke for 15 minutes, before. But, listen, he's a very good promoter, and he came back for one day only, and definitely the last one.
Certainly not something I will forget. So Eddie Hearn, as always, thanks for speaking to Boxing Social.
Cheers, mate, thank you.
Cheers, Eddie.